If you want an exposure to a market or an asset,
Everything they need in one place.
the world's foremost authority on
Individuals, advisors and institutions.
Every fund manager has their own special style of managing money, but one particular fund manager from Lion Trust has stood out as being very unique. That's Anthony Cross, and he specifically focuses for the past number of years on investing in companies with intangible assets. That investment style has stood out to our Morningstar analysts and plenty of investors across the UK. Anthony joins me now to talk about this investment style and his top equity picks. So, Anthony, thanks very much for coming in.
Good morning.
Now, let's talk specifically about this investment style of yours on intangible assets. Tell me how this works exactly. Lay it out for me.
Well, what we're looking for are some very clear, strong intangible assets that give companies a big barrier to competition. And there's three that we particularly like. The first is intellectual property, the second is strong distribution networks, and the third is high contracted recurring income. So for any of our companies to come into a fund, you've got to have at least one of those three strong intangible assets. We then also look at brands and formats and procedures and culture to get an overall picture of how a company can get its barriers to competition.
And you're also known as being a very long-term investor as well. Can you comment a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think there's a big secret behind owning companies for a long time and allowing those companies to deliver for you and compound out their returns. Now, if you've got the companies right in the first place, with these strong barriers to competition and strong financial returns, well then let them do the work for you and don't keep swapping the fund around.
Okay. Now, you have three top picks for us today on the small cap side. We have NCC Group, IOMART Group, and UK Mail Group. So let's go over NCC. Tell me a bit about them and why you like them.
Well, NCC do two things. The first is software escrow. So they act as almost like an insurance company. So they will hold the blueprint of software independently of the customer and the provider of the software, in case the provider of the software goes down. The other part of their business is very fast growing, and it's all to do with internet testing. So testing companies' infrastructure to make sure that it's robust enough.
So they hire hackers essentially to test things out?
Yeah, they have experts, guys with a terrific know-how in the world of the internet. And some companies are facing up to 50,000 attacks a day. And this is a massive issue. And a lot of companies aren't really owning up to it, because if you own up to it, then people outside know you've got a problem. So they will hire people like NCC to come in and to do investigations and troubleshoot and test to make sure the internet for that company is really robust.
And for the category in terms of intangible assets, does that fit under the intellectual property category?
They have a lot of know-how. So we get intellectual property through that avenue. But the biggest thing for us is it's a very strong distribution network. They are the biggest in the field in this assurance testing, this internet testing. And then they are also the biggest in software escrow. So they have a very big distribution platform through which they can sell their products.
Okay, and let's go over IOMART now. Tell me a little bit about them.
IOMART's a really interesting company. It's a data center business. And where they were very clever was that they bought their data centers right at the end of the dot-com bust. So they picked these data centers up very cheaply. They've been deliberately slow in putting people into the data centers because they wanted to get very high added value types of customers that are growing fast and customers that require extra services like security and firewalls and backup fiber and backup data centers. So they are filling capacity, and that filling of the capacity is leading to very large increases in profitability because you get immense operational gearing, as we call it, as profits come through on a pretty flat cost base. So they're doing really well, and we've done well out of IOMART, both in the smaller companies fund and the special situations fund.
Okay, your last pick is UK Mail Group. I was a little bit surprised by this. When I think of mail, I think people aren't sending mail as much as they used to. So tell me why you picked this.
No, it's an interesting one because it's an industry that has suffered from too much capacity. But what has been happening in the last year or so is capacity has been coming out. And UK Mail does two things. One is parcels delivery. So that's benefiting a lot from the online increase in people purchasing. The other thing it does is has a portion of the UK Mail route. So up to the last mile, UK Mail can send letters through the Royal Mail distribution system. And what they're doing is bringing some increasingly new ideas into this, and there's things like iMail, which is all about printing off mail much nearer the end location of where it's going to. So rather than it going, saying, from Plymouth to Edinburgh, you'd have a print house in Edinburgh, and then it just goes the final leg. So there's efficiencies are coming, there's innovations coming, and overall capacity is coming out of the market, so there's pricing tension, and UK Mail is now seeing earnings upgrades.
Okay, now let's go over the key risks for each of these companies. Let's start with NCC Group.
Yeah, NCC, I mean, it's really reputational risk is the big issue for them. They've got terrific know-how, but if their guys make significant mistakes and things don't work, then there's a reputational issue with NCC.
And what about IOMart?
IOMart is much more to do with the problems of a database going down. A data center going down. And this could be, it might be fire, but obviously they've got precautions against that. It could be terrorist attacks. So those are the infrastructure risks are IOMART's.
And for UK Mail, what's the key risk there?
The key risk there is that capacity, which is coming out now, goes back into reverse. So capacity comes back in again, and that destroys the pricing tension that we're starting to enjoy.
Okay. Thank you very much for speaking with me today.
Thank you.
That was Anthony Cross from Lion Trust, and I'm Alana Petroff. Thank you very much for watching Morningstar.